What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to Down to the Wire. I'm your host, Brian Costa, and tonight we have got a fantastic episode in store for you. I know it's been a while since I've been on the air, but I am officially back, and I am with a special guest. He has appeared on this show many times before. So without any further ado, please welcome back to the show, Mr. Briant Johnson. Briant, how you doing tonight?
Good. It's nice to be the most repeat offender of the show. So
Yeah, it really does seem like that. You might be tied at this point with Joel LaFlamme, aka Hey Kami, my MLB colleague from TikTok, but it's a pretty close second, I'd say, with you at this point, and I'm glad to have you on the show with me tonight.
I'm happy to be here. Long time.
Absolutely. So we have got a ton to talk about from all the latest going on with the new NFL rules, such as the hip drop tackle being banned and the new NFL kickoff rules. We're going to talk some baseball news as well about Shohei Ohtani and his gambling scandal and everything else in between. Also talk some NCAA basketball news. So super excited about that. But before we get into any of that, if you are not following the channel yet, make sure you guys follow us on all social media platforms. We are on all streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and more. You can also find our stream on YouTube, and you can find all updates about the show and little clips on our Instagram at down.tothewire. Again, at down.tothewire on the IG. So if you're not following, go make sure you hit us up on there. So, Briant, first things first, the NFL, the competition committee decided to make a controversial ruling and ban the hip drop tackle. Now, I'll let you kind of speak a little bit on this because you have more of a football background. And maybe for some viewers who aren't familiar with the hip drop tackle, you can provide some kind of background expertise on that. So, when the NFL is saying they're banning the hip drop tackle, Brian, can you kind of elaborate on what that's saying?
yeah, so basically, in football you got like two basic ways to tackle, and it's mostly dependent on like the size of the person you're going against. So like if you're playing linebacker, you're tackling a Derrick Henry or like a Josh Allen or somebody. Maybe like better comparison, like a cornerback, someone who's a lot bigger than you. You're gonna need to do like we call it a hawk roll tackle. So you basically get down, you roll your body weight onto their legs to make ensure that they go to the ground. Um, and that's like a technique that's taught all throughout high school, middle school, all the way down to like tiny mites. Like it's a fundamental football skill that we all use. Um, and actually, like a lot of rugby guys use it too. That's kind of where it comes from. And then you got like your regular tackle, which is like where you straight up just demolish the guy. But that's usually if you're outsizing him, then that's the case. Um, so I just find it very interesting to see how this is going to play out in terms of how defensive backs are expected to make tackles when they're that much smaller than most of the running backs and even quarterbacks at this point that they're going to go against.
Yeah, I wonder about that as well. I know that one of the player injuries that this stemmed from going back to last season was the Ravens tight end Mark Andrews. That happened when Logan Wilson of the Cincinnati Bengals attempted a hip drop tackle on him and then ended up breaking Andrews' leg, which caused him to miss a substantial amount of time. Did make it back for the playoffs, but did cost him a good part of that season. So there have been a couple injury instances like this that have led to this. And I'm now just wondering what it's going to look like with this now not being allowed in the NFL. Right now, the competition committee is saying that this is likely to be handed out with fines rather than penalties, but they said that could be amended down the line. And if you're a cornerback going against a tight end and you're not allowed to drop your weight to bring them to the ground, I have a clip that I don't have it loaded up right now, but it's Rob Gronkowski when he was facing Washington during his time with the Patriots, and I
Mhm.
remember he just catches a pass and goes to the outside and literally drags three defenders about 10 yards and then breaks off and runs another 20 before being brought down. And I'm just like, that's what's going to happen if these guys aren't allowed to hip drop. Now I know Gronk is a freak, but that's kind of what can happen if you're not allowed to do that.
Right. I was gonna say I understand where the viewpoint's coming from because my senior year, I don't know if you remember, I had I had a double like two ankle sprains at once, all from the hip drop tackle actually
Yeah.
from behind. So I understand where it's stemming from with all the injuries and all the injury concerns. But at the end of the day, it's a contact sport, so you gotta let the boys play.
Yeah.
My main concern is not not necessarily with the rule if it's fines, But if it is penalties, how are you supposed to tackle Josh Allen, a
Right.
quarterback of that size who you can't put all your weight on? That's a roughing the passer. Now you can't tackle him at the legs and bring him down, and you can't smoke him because that's another roughing the passer. So I just don't see where it ends.
No, I mean it's kind of ridiculous, and I think JJ Watt kind of made an allusion to this. I had at least heard that he had said like honestly, the defensive players in the league should honestly consider going on strike because this is just another rule that is to the detriment of the defense. Now, like obviously in the NFL, everyone wants to see offense. They want to see the high flying scoring affairs. That's what they live for, and like that's what makes the NFL money. But not every game can be that Monday night game between the Rams and the Chiefs from what was it like 5 or so years ago, where it was like 54-45, and it was like this amazing shootout of a game. Not all football games are like that. Like you see that a lot more in like college. Like defense does matter in the NFL, and them trying to essentially nerf that and take that away isn't right at least by my estimation.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brian. I think that this is turning way too much toward the offense and just not fair to the defense of the NFL. I think that's what I like to watch in the NFL versus the college games is that there is that defensive aspect. In college, it's like touchdown for touchdown. Like when you're watching the Washington Texas game, it was touchdown for touchdown for touchdown for touchdown. Whereas in the NFL, like the defenses actually put up a stand and put up a stop.
It actually matters in college. Like you can have a great defense, but like if you're facing a good offense, it's going to get shredded. It literally does not matter. Good defenses in college just matters if you have good individual players. The scheme, unfortunately, can get exposed very easily.
Yeah, I would say that as like they're more technically sound in the NFL, and it's I think it's more fun to watch what the defense does, especially in like the last couple of years. Like I know Dallas's defense is always fun to watch, like the Legion of Boom, whereas you don't have that aspect in college. So I think it's gonna take away from the the aspect of the NFL a little bit with all these rules.
Yeah, I guess I have to kind of wonder like does this I mean Brian, from your perspective, does this kind of open up for other potential injuries with players kind of going forward in the league, the fact that guys now aren't allowed to maybe just be as fluid and like just be able to kind of do a normal tackle from what they've been knowing all their life?
So I think it prevents the injuries of the offense, but in defensive perspective, the shoulders of the defenders, like I know me myself, I tore my labrum, and I know like countless of other defensive backs and things like that. They do the same thing and linebackers because you're tackling with your shoulder constantly, especially when it's against like larger opponents. Like say you're playing safety, you have to tackle a 250 pound running back, you weigh 180 pounds that and him running full speed at you, you're hitting him with your shoulder all the time instead of being able to drag him to the ground. It just puts a lot of stress on that. So I think there's going to be a lot more injuries to the defensive players in terms of like shoulders and things like that from all this heavy impact because you can't lighten the blow with a hawk roll tackler or anything like that.
Yeah, definitely. Something that I was talking with some of my coworkers with was the fact that now like that guys technically won't be allowed to do this. Like something you might see a lot more of is of like tight ends and stuff essentially being more keen to go out over the middle, where before it's like that's usually where all offensive players go to die because there's usually a guy waiting there just to absolutely crush you. But if they're
Mhm.
not allowed to essentially touch you now, like what's really the problem with it?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that now they're banning that because I remember when Gronk, same thing, Gronk used to play, when he'd go over the middle, they'd go right for the knees because he was just so big.
And
And
that's
then
probably and that's
that's
what you're going to see a lot more of now too. I think you're going to see a lot of knee injuries on the offensive players because if you're not allowed to bring them down and use your full weight, the easiest way to probably get them is by just chopping them low.
hmm Yeah, and then from there, like I don't know where the NFL is gonna go. Are they gonna try to outlaw that? Are they gonna reverse the rule? It's just
I think you're just gonna have to put the belts on them and have them play flag at this point.
yeah, I just think it's unfortunate. Like they're getting paid to do this, and I know like you don't want to see anyone get injured, but it is the nature of the game, and they're getting paid. In
I mean,
Mark Andrews case, like 25 mil.
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it is football. Like you could, I don't like that the MLB did this, but when the MLB in 2014 decided to come out and say, hey, we're not going to allow you to just like plow over the catcher for no reason now on when runners are coming from third to home base. Like, we're just going to take that out of the game because like that was never supposed to be a thing. Like, it was like, okay, yeah, like baseball for the most part isn't that much of a contact sport. We can see where you're like, hey, we want to take this out of the game. I don't like that they took it out of the game, but I'm like, I understand where they're coming from. They want to prevent injuries in that sense. Football, like if you're playing football, you expect to get injured. That's part of the game. No guy makes it through a full football season completely healthy. That just doesn't happen. And not that I want these guys to go out there and like, completely like just damage themselves. But at the end of the day, like that's what they sign up for. They're paid millions of dollars to go out there and perform. And unfortunately, injuries is what comes with the product.
Yeah, I agree. When you're playing a sport at that level, that pace, you're just kind of bound to get injured. Like
Yeah.
the average running back, 2 years.
Yeah.
It's kind of in the contract when you sign it. So
Yeah. I mean, that's why running back contracts are so cheap. It's because they just know eventually you're just gonna wear all the tread off those tires. I mean, look at a guy like Todd Gurley, who's not even 30 years old yet and has been out of the league for I think 3 or so years at this
or
point.
Chris Carson come off over 1,000 yard rushing season done next year.
Yeah.
So
So it does happen very quickly. And it's just shocking the fact that this rule kind of went into place, but it was not the only rule that the competition committee signed off on. The other rule that was signed off on, and I actually have an example of this, was the alteration of the NFL kickoff rule. So, Brian, I don't know if you can see the screen in front of you now,
oh, I got it.
but this is from an article in the LA Times, and this kind of shows what the new NFL kickoff rule is going to look like. Now, for any of us that have watched football, um, and are watching this or listening to this on audio and not watching this on YouTube, traditional kickoffs start at the 35-yard line of the opposing sideline. Kicker kicks off, defenders run with him, and then they go and it's a normal NFL kickoff. Now what we're going to have happen is only the kicker is going to be at that opposing 35-yard line, and now the defense is going to be on the home 45-yard or on the receiving 35-yard line, and there's going to be a space called the setup zone between a bunch of defenders, and then there's the landing zone where the ball can land and then get picked up by a receiver and then run out. It sounds confusing for me because I barely know how to explain this, so that's why I'm kind of stumbling over this. But Bryant, like, what is like this is originally came over from the XFL. As someone again who's played this game, all your life, and I really don't have as much playing experience in this regard. What is your take on all of this?
So someone who has even more experience than my father, who played college football for a long time, he actually was a proponent of this rule.
Hmm.
I remember we were watching XFL on the couch, and he was like, I like the way that the kickoff works here. Like it prevents injury. I could see the NFL going into this just because when you run people at that speed at each other, like it's the rate of injury on kickoff is gravely higher than any other like defense, offense, everything. Just because of the speed at which they're running. So my dad thinks that like it's kind of a good plan because first of all, most of the kickoffs are touchbacks and like it forces a return. So it kind of I don't know how to explain like it just makes it like more interesting to the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, the only thing I don't really like about this rule is the fact that you have to declare you're kicking off and not doing an onside kick. I think that really spoils the opportunity of an onside kick because now there's no surprise. Like, so that's about it.
Yeah, okay. I didn't realize that you have to declare that you're not doing that you're doing an onside kick. That actually does kind of that's almost like what they do now with the 2 point conversion being at the 2, but then moving the extra point back to like the 15-yard line. So
Right.
like back when the NFL had both the extra point and the 2 point conversion at the 2-yard line, you never knew really what you could get. You could get a fake situation that would be, a much easier score than going from the 15. And now with
Mhm.
this, I really don't know too much of what to make with it because I mean, obviously, touchbacks in the league have been on the increase throughout the past couple seasons, and I think they've been at almost a league high the past couple of years. So I'll be interested to see how this all works out. But I don't know. I'm surprised that the NFL did go to this move just based on how much they do kind of, you know, brand like the idea of the kickoff. Like it's always like, oh, kickoff is like kickoff's next, like blah, blah, blah. Like they always talk about like the idea of like the kickoff in the game. And I know that it's only a small, minute part of football, but I'm very surprised that they decided to go away from what's been very traditional with it. I know a couple years ago they decided to go with touchbacks being moved from the 20-yard line to the 25, but this is a much more drastic difference than what we've traditionally seen.
Yeah, I think it's a big change, but at the same time, like it's been done for a while. With the old XFL, like in the 90s before this. That's kind of what my dad was referring to. He said that when they did it, it was like very intriguing to actually watch. So it might make for some good TV, which
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a proponent. I'm a proponent of, I guess, because I'm just watching on the couch. So
Yeah. Fair enough. So hopefully this does end up maybe bringing some more action, some more offense to the game. I'm kind of skeptical right now, seeing what it's exactly going to look like. Are we now going to see guys break off big kickoff return TDs? If so, that's awesome. Like, and I think that's great for the game. But I really don't know what this is going to look like so far. You could just see a bunch of coaches that are saying, screw this weird kickoff rule, just still boot it into the back of the end zone. It doesn't matter. So who knows how this is actually going to turn out?
I agree. I think it could be a toss up. The only one that I'm was like a big um
Proponent of
naysayer of was the hip drop tackle because just kind of ruins the defensive
how are you
aspect.
supposed to tackle guys now? Exactly. So that's kind of our thoughts on the new NFL rules. Brian, the other things I wanted to talk about in terms of NFL was the Patriots and their interesting situation with the third overall pick. Now, Brian, I know you're not a Patriots fan, you're a Colts fan, but just kind of it's a very interesting situation going on there in New England because it seems pretty apparent that New England is trying to shop this pick and maybe try to acquire some more assets and move down and select a quarterback later in the draft. But as of right now, it doesn't seem like they're getting maybe the Godfather offer that the Miami Dolphins got where they were able to trade with the 49ers and acquire a bunch of picks. So I don't
Right.
know what this is looking right now because I mean, right now the Patriots are slotted to take one of the top three quarterbacks. I mean, it's pretty obvious now Caleb Williams is going to be a Chicago Bear. Now the only question is, what are the Commanders going to do? Are they going to take Drake May or Jaden Daniels? Um, at this point, my take on it, and I think that John made a great point of this. Our friend John Warren, for any of those who are unfamiliar, he made a great point the other day to us, saying that the Commanders signing Marcus Mariota to be their backup quarterback tracks more towards them taking Jaden Daniels with the second overall pick because Jaden Daniels has a similar play style to Mariota, and therefore they can have a very similar playbook and then plug and play them and then plug in Daniels when they feel he's ready. So instead of taking a guy like Marcus Mariota, who is traditionally a more mobile guy, and then taking Drake May, who has more of a pocket passer in him. I know he's somewhat mobile, but Daniels is more known for his running. So you could have a playbook centered around Mariota, and then once Daniels is when they feel he's ready to go, they could just slide him in and not have to change too much of the offense. So that's kind of how I kind of do. I kind of agree with that. And then similarly to that, I feel like Jacoby Brissett has a very similar play style to Drake May, where it's some mobility. I know Jacoby had a lot more earlier in his career and maybe less than May does now, but I think that you could have a more of a pocket passer presence from Jacoby and then slide Drake May into that offense when he's ready. I think that's what the Patriots will do if they end up keeping the third pick. Now, if they trade it, that's all speculation as to where they end up going. I think that if they were to trade it, they might look at a guy like JJ McCarthy, maybe a Michael Penix. I don't really know how they're feeling, but Brian, if you were the Patriots in this situation, what would you be doing?
Um, so if I was Patriots GM, I'd be looking at a trade with the Steelers.
Mm.
I like the idea of trading that pick and getting Wilson. Actually, yeah, because they have the cap space to take it on. So I would trade with them, look to get a veteran quarterback like Wilson, and then take the Penix lower, and then work with have Wilson be the mentor. But
So you think the Steelers would trade Russell Wilson immediately after signing him?
I don't. I feel like they would because they just signed Fields.
I disagree with that. I that is a that's a crazy take. I frankly think that I think the Steelers picked up Wilson because he was cheap and another team's paying his salary. And then
Right.
they found that they were able to acquire Justin Fields. And at this point, they're just saying, all right, one of these guys is hopefully going to work out for us. And if not, we're going to have to go back to the drawing board anyways. I think they said, we're not just going to mess around with one guy and hope he works out. We're going to get two guys that have been starters in this league. And if neither of them can work with us, then we're going to go back to the draft. I think that's how the Steelers are viewing this offseason.
Yeah, I guess that's a valid take. I mean, they did just sign him for 1 year, but
Yeah.
I thought since they picked up Fields, I assume that he would be the starter due to Wilson's kind of ups and downs of last year.
Hmm.
But I think the Patriots bottom line, I think, need to either trade this pick or pick up. I would like to see Drake May in that system.
Hmm.
I don't think that they're going to get McCarthy. I don't think that. Well, I first of all don't think McCarthy should go that high. They're not going to get Williams, and yeah, I mean Daniels is also a good fit as you mentioned to study under Mariota, but
Yeah.
I think Drake May would work really well with Jacoby Brissett and that style of like play action and things like that. And you do have a decent running game with Ramondre Stevenson, so I'd be curious to see how that would work out.
Yeah, Brian. To be completely honest with you right now, after the pickup of Mariota, I think that the first three picks, if the Patriots stay there, are locked, and it would be Williams, Daniels, and then May. As a Patriots fan, though, I got to tell you, I'm not 100% sold on Drake May. I know that a lot of our other friends and different people around the area like what he brings to the table. I really don't. Now I know he can complete passes to all three levels of the field. He's got a great arm and he's a pretty athletic guy. But when I watch a lot of his highlights, which a lot of people point me to and say, hey, check out Drake May's highlights, check out all he's able to do, a
Mhm.
lot of his plays seem to appear reckless because, and I'll be, to be honest with you, he makes some fantastic plays out of terrible situations. I know there's this one play where he's scrambling towards the left side of the field and he has a defender kind of bearing down on him, and at the last second, he shifts the ball to his left hand and throws a left-handed touchdown pass to a receiver. And it's an awesome, fun play to see. Sports Center top 10. But in the NFL, that play might not fly. In the NFL, when you're getting tackled to the ground and you try to just sidearm a throw to a receiver, that's not always the smartest play to make. And maybe again, he's in college, he's trying to make the best of a bad situation. And that's just, and he's just, balling out because he's one of the better players on the field. But in the NFL, as a quarterback, sometimes you do need to know when it's the right time to take a sack, when you need to go down, when you need to run out of bounds and realize you're not going to get any more. I know, like how we said in college, the defenses aren't as great. The NFL, those guys can expose you. So that's something I worry about with Drake May. And I'm like, I don't really see a lot of people talking about it. It's just really about his character. And I haven't really read up too much on his character, more that people just kind of think that he's maybe a little bit immature. But really, the thing that kind of scares me is he going to be just reckless on the field and just making like an abundance of turnovers, kind of similar to what we saw with Mac Jones last year, where throwing off the back foot, not really being able to get a good solid throw into the ball and just leaving it up there for defenders.
The thing I do like about Drake May over Mac Jones is that he played for a program that is not like a powerhouse.
Mm.
I mean, UNC is good, yes, but they are not Alabama. So it's nice to see that Drake May could put up those numbers with recruits that are good, yes, but they are not Alabama recruits. They're not 5-star. Like they're not working with Devontae Smith and uh all those guys that Mac Jones got.
Yeah.
So that was the thing that I was skeptical about with Mac Jones when they first brought him in the league is, oh, he had all these weapons. Literally, you could drop anyone in there, like a Brock Purdy. You drop him in the San Francisco offense, he just can do whatever he wants, right?
Yeah.
Um, I would also be a little more concerned about his maturity than the playmaking skills because we've seen that the playmaking skills can pay off in the NFL with guys like Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes actually did that same pass, the right to left. So I
Oh
can
yeah,
pay.
and again, 100%. Not saying it can't be done in the NFL, but I think if we just see a couple guys in college do it, and we say like, oh, he's going to be the next Pat Mahomes,
Right.
kind of sets yourself up for a bad precedent because it's like, yes, he did it in college. Pat Mahomes is doing it in the highest league. Like he's doing it on another level. And I know Pat Mahomes had the ability to make some good plays like that in college. It's been a while since I've watched his college highlights. Same thing kind of with Josh Allen, but they weren't known for like all of these game breaking plays, they were known for being good, solid quarterbacks.
Yeah. I see where you're coming from. I was agreeing in a sense that yes, it's a different level but I think the playmaking skill can translate to the next level.
Sure.
If he does it in a mature way. I
Yeah.
was more worried about the immaturity if he were to turn into like a Johnny Manziel or something like that, where he can't handle the pressure of being the face of the franchise.
Yeah, I mean, for him now, he's coming. If let's say it is Drake May or whoever it is coming now into the situation, the person who was supposed to be the heir apparent to Tom Brady flamed out after 3 seasons. Basically, his last two were horrific, and in his last one, he got benched halfway through the year. So, I mean, the stakes are pretty high. I mean, it is a new head coach. The architect behind the last dynasty just got ousted. So, there are a lot of expectations, but the fact that Belichick isn't in there anymore makes it an interesting situation nonetheless.
I That's one other thing I found that was interesting. I thought the Patriots were going to do a whole rehaul. Like I thought they were going to ship the whole staff out, start a whole new thing just because the dynasty is over, Belichick and Brady are gone. But I kind of like the move to keep Gerard Mayo and try to start with a clean slate.
Yeah,
So
we'll have to see how that ends up turning out because right now it seems like some of the staff that Mayo has picked is kind of similar to what Belichick has done, where it's a bunch of guys that are kind of flamed out in other places, not flamed out, but just really have disappointed in other areas. I know Alex Van Pelt had some solid offenses over in Cleveland. Ben McAdoo has kind of had a tumultuous career, but these guys are NFL professionals. Hopefully, they can try to get some sort of semblance of quality out of whoever the next guy is, and hopefully they just don't tear him down like I think Belichick did to Mac Jones towards the end of his tenure there.
we'll see, I guess.
Yeah. Now, Brian, this is a topic that you kind of wanted me to kind of go into with this, and it was the idea of JJ McCarthy gaining an increased hype, and now is not even just like a first round talent, but is now getting top first round like looks. What is your kind of like? You can kind of like give me a little more detail on this, but what is your overall synopsis of this?
So I first saw the JJ McCarthy hype back when they thought the Broncos were going to take him with, I think, the 12th pick.
Yeah.
The 12th pick. My buddy Shay, well, like huge Broncos fan, I sent it to him. I said, "This is like, if this happens to you, just stop and switch teams already. Like,
Yeah.
I'd be done because I think JJ McCarthy is one of like the most overrated quarterbacks I've ever seen in college football. When you have that backfield and all you do half the time is hand the ball off and you just do play action, like, yeah, you're gonna throw to wide open guys. But I had not seen him make a play that has like blown me off my feet or make reads that are like difficult where you can't really tell or there's blanketed coverage or anything like that. I've just seen him throw on the move to wide open guys. He's mobile, which is nice. But other than that, like I haven't really seen anything special from like a QB IQ standpoint or like a pocket passer standpoint. I just see him as like a mobile guy who can throw on the run. He's got a good arm, and that's about it.
Yeah, Brian, I tend to agree with you on this, and I'm a Michigan fan. Like I was rooting for JJ McCarthy in that backfield all the way through their national championship run this year. I do think that McCarthy was an important piece of that team, but when you look at it, their defense stepped up big time, and they had a lot of guys on that defensive line that were huge for them. And then the duo of Corum and Edwards was everything for them. So I do agree, and it's kind of crazy. There are a lot of parallels right now you can kind of make between JJ McCarthy and Zach Wilson, where they're having one incredible throw at a pro day, and now they're gaining all this traction, which is insane. The fact that we literally saw this same movie play out. What was it now, 3 or so years ago, and we're seeing it all come back. We're seeing it rear its head once again.
I actually really like that comparison. I think that they have very similar playing styles.
Yeah, they do.
Um, and I mean, Wilson went one, but you kind of knew him coming out of school. You're like, oh, he's really good for college, but he's doing all these things, like you said earlier about Drake May. Like, I don't think that that's going to translate because you got all these guys that are faster, bigger, stronger in the NFL.
Yeah, and the thing about Zach Wilson too is that he had that hype. I think, I think that like his pro day and a lot of stuff in the offseason helped him get up to the number 2 pick. But I mean, he was still gaining a lot of traction even through that final year. JJ McCarthy was getting a lot of like almost like kind of hate and stuff throughout that season, basically saying you're a product of this system. Any other quarterback could be in here right now and have this success. And then somehow after the national championship, he went from, a lot of people saw him as a day two guy to now potentially being a top 10 draft pick, which is insane to me. And frankly, as a Michigan fan, I want him to do well in the NFL. I wish him the most success. But frankly, right now, I don't know how as a GM I could look at him and be like, this guy isn't going to cost me my job.
Yeah, I couldn't feel comfortable taking him, especially at the 2 pick where he's projected now with the Commanders. I could not see
It
him
is
going like that.
insane. The only thing I could say about JJ McCarthy is the fact that he is super young. I mean, like, how old is he again? I think he's 21.
Yeah, I would say probably around there.
JJ McCarthy. Yeah, he just turned 21 in January. So I think he won I think he was 20 when he won the national championship. So he is incredibly young. So if you're a team and you think that, you know, he has the ability to kind of work out and maybe develop later on down the road, and you could maybe do like a Jordan Love situation with this guy where you sit him for like 2-3 seasons, have him learn behind a solid veteran quarterback, and then take over a team. I could see that. I don't think you can throw him into an offense right away in the NFL because I think he'll get exposed. But like a 21-year-old guy, like that's not the worst situation to be in. This isn't like Bo Nix, who's what now, 26 years old. I mean, like, how old is he?
He's pretty old. I would say he's like 25.
Yeah, Bo Nix. Yeah, he's only 24. Okay,
Oh.
I do give this guy a lot of crap. He just turned 24 at the end of February.
But
But
the thing I like about Bo Nix is he does have that maturity because he is old.
yeah,
So he plays with
older.
presence.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, 24 coming in the NFL is kind of old, I would
yeah,
say.
you are more seasoned at that point entering the league. Like a lot of guys, like I think Juju Smith-Schuster like got drafted when he was like 19 still, or like
Yeah.
20. So like yeah, it does I would say give you an advantage. So I just am not 100% sold on Bo Nix, to be honest with you, though. Like I have a lot of questions about him and whether he could really handle it. And frankly, I'm worried that the Patriots might see enough of. I think the Patriots could honestly see the difference between Drake May and Bo Nix and be like, these guys are relatively similar in terms of talent, and that could lead them to trading back and taking him later on in the first round.
I I I actually would see them trading back and taking Penix just because I think Penix does play with a similar style to both
Yeah.
Brissett and Drake May. So
Mhm.
I think you could plug them in the same sort of system and get a decent result.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things with Penix that I do like. I think that he's incredibly tough. I mean, we saw him in that national championship game. He was limp. He was almost crawling off the field with, what seemed to be at least bruised, if not broken ribs. Like he was just holding his side. And even as a Michigan fan, I was like, oh my God, like that guy's a warrior. The fact that he went out there, got the crap kicked out of him, and, wasn't getting carted off the field. So like the guy is a warrior. But unfortunately, that does come at a price. And he's had 2 knee surgeries on both of his knees. So he's already had a bunch of injuries at this point in his career. And, you throw that in with the fact that, the whole lefty QB thing isn't really a problem anymore because a lot of people see, there was a whole thing where they mirrored his throwing motion and it looks like he has a rocket arm from that side. But I don't know. Like I have some questions about Penix as well. Now, do I think that he has the ability to be a good guy from the jump? Yeah, I think so. But I wonder what his longevity will look like.
I mean, I think you could raise that concern for a lot of people in terms of like injuries.
Sure.
He's coming in, but I think the way that they protect the quarterbacks nowadays would preserve him a lot better because in college they kind of let a lot go that in the NFL would be a 15-yarder. So I could see him as long as he's like a pocket passer, which he seems to be for the most part, being all right, as long as the Patriots finally fix row line for the first time in like 5 years.
Yeah, so that's the only thing that I worry about is that, I mean, we saw what happened with the number 1 pick in Joe Burrow a couple of years ago, his rookie season. O-line fails him, he takes a shot to the knee, he's done for the year. And now
Yeah.
he's been dealing with lingering injuries with, with his leg and different things like that throughout his time. So who knows how this could look.
Yeah, I mean that's all I really got on McCarthy. I just think he's kind of gone through the roof in terms of his draft stock, and it's hopefully will plateau and go back down because I don't think that the number 2 pick should go to a guy that rode on the running game all year.
If JJ McCarthy goes to the Commanders, this will be would it be a crazier equivalent? Would you say it would be a crazier scenario than when the Bears drafted Mitchell Trubisky at number 2.
I think it would be kind of equivalent in my eyes. I mean, Mitch Trubisky has just kind of been like a backup the whole thing. But the thing that baffles me is that the Commanders are willing to take a guy who's literally Sam Howell part two with the number 2 pick. Like you would think that they would have an idea to change this little philosophy they have
Yeah.
that it cost them so much in the last like 2 years.
Makes sense. I mean, it is a new ownership group though, so they're gonna have to learn this one. They're gonna have to learn this the hard way, and hopefully they can make the right pick, and they get a guy that they feel is able to lead them for years to come. But with a new ownership group, you really don't know which way this thing is gonna go. I know, you're always gonna have people in your ear telling you like, "Oh, this guy's the best. This guy's the best fit. You need to take this guy." So who knows how they're going to handle all those internal discussions and and how that affects who they end up picking. But Brian, that's kind of what we have in terms of NFL news. Before we jump over into the MLB, I did want to take a moment and talk some NCAA basketball with you because there have been just some insane upsets to say the least to start this year. Uh, Obviously, the most notable one came when Oakland upset Kentucky in the opening round. And we have a new March Madness legend in Jack Golke being born. Bryant, just like, did you pick Oakland? Because I sure as hell didn't.
No, but I had Kentucky getting upset pretty early. I had
Who
them
did
lose
you,
to
who did you
Creighton.
have them getting upset?
Um,
You said Creighton.
I think I took Creighton over Kentucky. I don't think it was an upset, but I think it was like a lot of people took Kentucky to upset Creighton. But I just looked at the Calipari last couple of years. It's been kind of like a slow decline in terms of production in the tournament. So
Definitely. I'd have to take a look and see who I ended up having because I don't think I had Kentucky going that far either. I was to take a look at my bracket. Now, where did I have Kentucky finishing? So I actually had Kentucky going on to the second round, but then getting upset by NC State. So I had them going out.
Ah.
I had them going out the next round, and had they won, that actually would have been correct.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good. I don't think I had that. No, I had Kentucky beating NC State and losing to Marquette.
There you go.
But
Yeah. But
hey,
obviously now we have a new March Madness legend in Jack Golke who's been born. Very similar to now Bryant Bulldog Doug Edert, who had his March Madness run with the St. Peter's Peacocks. Now has spent the past 2 seasons in Smithfield. Just Bryant, it's insane the fact that this tournament is able to take guys that relatively from smaller conferences have flown under the radar, and in the span of 40 minutes has changed their lives forever. It is unbelievable the fact that a guy like Jack Olke, who played Division II basketball for his entire undergraduate career, came to Oakland in his fifth year, and he did ball out like this season. He averaged, I think it was, I think he averaged like 12 points a game, and only took the most remarkable stat about him is the fact that he only took 8 2-point shots the entire season. So for this entire year, he was just bombing threes and was connecting at a pretty good clip. And the fact that he comes into this one ties an NCAA tournament record with 10 threes. Credit to him and, an amazing performance.
yeah, I think March Madness is all kind of about who catches fire. And in terms of Doug Edert, he did it, and Jack Oakey, much the same. I think it was impressive the amount of threes he put up and the amount he made. 50% clip is absolutely insane. I think the part that I liked most was when he said, "I'm not going to the NBA."
Oh yeah.
And all the comments are like, "You'd be surprised, the Miami Heat pick you." And I was that kind of got me.
Everyone was saying Celtic killer, which is funny because he's actually a Celtics fan.
Oh yeah, I could low key see him making it somewhere like a Duncan Robinson type player where he just shoots. No, more like a Sam Hauser because I would say Duncan Robinson's a little more skilled.
Pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, but more like a Sam Hauser where he sits in the corner and just pulls up.
Yeah, I mean, who knows how that could actually look? I mean, but again, this is what this tournament does now, Bryant. Like going into this tournament, no one would have said, "Oh, let's give this kid from Oakland a shot in the NBA."
Mhm.
Now it's what everyone's talking about. It's like, oh, maybe this kid can be a 3-point specialist. Maybe he can be like, a guy, like a depth guy off the bench for a playoff team. And it's like, what? Like this guy was playing Division II ball.
Yeah, I just
And no shade to him, but it is just remarkable to me that that's what this tournament can do.
yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that the tournament opens up doors for everyone. Like, I
Huge.
think didn't he go from 5,000 to like 50,000 followers in a day, something
It's
like that?
probably more now. I want to actually check how much this kid has now.
Yeah, so this kid's life just flipped on its head in one night just because he hit threes against Kentucky. But
He has 70,000 followers now.
yeah,
His life has changed. Like he's I think his friends told him that they basically made an email for him for all NIL deals. And Buffalo Wild Wings I know has reached out to him. He's getting deals like left and right now. And I think Barstool reached out to him, and they're selling T-shirts of him. So like this is a great opportunity for him. He's killing it. So congratulations to him.
yeah. I
Yeah,
would say back to the basketball, just the John Calipari stuff.
yeah.
It's kind of insane what's been happening to his teams in the tournament lately. Just the last 3 years, kind of getting bounced in early rounds is just not Kentucky like tradition. So I'm kind of shocked.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess what it is now is, Brian, when we were kind of, growing up before college, the big trend obviously in college for most of our life has been the one and done rule where, you have a lot of these star players like Kyrie Irving, Jason Tatum, um, just a bunch of like I could go on and name a bunch of other guys, but just some guy, but I'm just thinking of a couple people to name. And they go in, they play their 1 year of college just to be draft eligible, and then they leave immediately, which, for those players that are good enough to do it, then yeah, go ahead, do that, and then go make your money. And I do agree that that is like a very interesting thing to see because you got guys like Zion Williamson that would go to Duke for a year, balled out, and then, went to the league. But what we're starting to see, I think, is that these older guys that, stuck around through COVID years and are now like 25, some maybe even 26 years old, that experience in college does have play a factor when you're going against 18-year-olds that have maybe not run these kind of in-depth and complex like offenses and defenses before. Like I think that does play a factor where it's not just about athleticism, and there is a scheme that needs to be drawn up.
Yeah, I would say that, and also the chemistry between guys. Like you have the chance to play together for a long duration of time, which then like all your plays by the back of your hand. You know where
Yeah.
each person's going to be, their tendency, all that stuff.
And
And when you're
even
coming out one and done, you're coming off playing with high schoolers, for the most part, who if you don't go to an academy, they're obviously not to your level of play. So you're not used to sharing the ball and working with guys at the same skill level as you.
Yeah, and I know the transfer portal has kind of changed that a little bit with guys being able to move more frequently, but as someone who, is at like a mid-major school where you see a lot of guys kind of, come in but still stick around, even if it's just for that second season. I know for Bryant when we went out and we had our NCAA tournament run in 2022, the year prior was when we brought in Peter Kiss, who would go on to become the nation's leading scorer. And we had him and then Charles Pride and then Michael Green III, who also actually appeared in the NCAA tournament this year. So congrats to him. And they were a little trio that made their way to the NEC championship game and lost that year to Mount St. Mary's. The following year, Green transferred to Robert Morris, but Kiss and then Pride returned and were able to rally that team of Luis Hurtado and a bunch of other quality pieces like Hall Elijahs and the transfers that came in, and that shared chemistry that those guys had built prior were able to lead them to winning the NEC and going to the NCAA tournament the following season. Now, obviously, when you're at Kentucky and you're getting these top-notch recruits, you're going to be poised to make that tournament run every single season. But now that chemistry just isn't the same as it once was, and just having pure talent isn't going to always get you over the top anymore.
Yeah, I saw this play out. One of my best friends was playing for Albany this year. And they had tremendous talent on that team. They had guy who every time I watched went for 30 to 40 points. They had Cam Reddish's younger brother, a bunch of other pieces that a lot of guys that are probably going to go up to big schools like Michigan and things like that.
Yeah.
But it was they couldn't cohere. They had no team chemistry for the most part. So as a result, they suffered. So to that point, like I agree. I think that extra time, that duration really gels the team together, and that's what really makes these teams go resist the runs of guys like Oakland and things like that, which you can't do when you're a school of just the one and done guys like Kentucky.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a fair point. So, I mean, I really don't know how the rest of this tournament is gonna unfold. Now, I mean, Brian, I was pretty basic. I took UConn in my bracket because I think that they've just been so dominant the entire season. I don't know who can stop them if I obviously that's what Cinderella teams are meant to do, but I think that they are just a wagon and are probably in my best bet going to continue their dominance this weekend. But what was your pick for the tournament?
It was UConn as well.
Yeah.
I think that,
In one of my brackets, I took Baylor, but that was just me trying to be different.
man, don't get me going. I took them to my Final Four because they're usually, like I just said, they're usually a team that isn't the one and done, and they usually have a great team of bigs and things like that, and they go deep. But this year
Yeah.
can't be said. So I took the Big East all the way. I took UConn, Marquette, and UConn taking the chip.
Yeah. So that'll definitely be interesting to see how that unfolds. I actually did know someone from my office that they had predicted all of the games right except for the Kentucky game and they had Kentucky going to win the championship.
Wow.
They predicted every other game of the opening weekend right, but that one.
Yeah, well, there goes their bracket
I
anyways.
yeah, I think their only saving grace is that I think if everyone else is national championship. So if UConn loses, I think that they have a shot then to get back in the tourney. Uh, but it's definitely funny though. So that's a little NCAA minute. The before we do end the show, I did want to take some time to talk about some Major League Baseball as opening day is on the horizon. Um, wow, just like I don't know, like as a Red Sox fan, I'm pretty down on this season because it's another offseason of the ownership really refusing to spend and address needs. I know that they went out and they acquired Lucas Giolito, but he goes down early in spring training, and now we're back to square one with this rotation. And I have a lot of questions about this team because so far it doesn't look like ownership cares about the team anymore. They seem to just view the Red Sox as a part of their portfolio. And at this point, I don't know as a fan how I can engage with this anymore because I'm just sick and tired of how this ownership group has operated because you ship Mookie Betts out of town and you got literally nothing in return because at the end of the day, the original package was Alex Verdugo, Jeter Downs, and Connor Wong. Downs was outright released because he was terrible. He couldn't hit a baseball. And then Connor Wong is the only current remaining member of this team because you flipped Verdugo in the offseason and you got 2 minor league pitchers. So to reiterate, Mookie Betts, arguably one of the best players in baseball, if not the best at that time, was traded to the Los Angeles Dodgers, who have a plethora of prospects and give them away like candy. You gave that guy to the Dodgers for Connor Wong and 2 minor league pitchers. That is one of the biggest fleece jobs in the history of the game. It is unbelievable. And it's flat embarrassing. I'm sorry. Like I just needed to go off and say that, Brian. And then to go off that too, not this off season, but the one prior, you let Xander Bogaerts walk after you made him a piss poor offer in free agency, and the Padres absolutely just sunned you and completely made you look foolish. And you go out and you sign Devers out of something as some sort of a sympathy offer, giving him a 10-year deal where really the only reason that kind of happened was because Bruins fans kind of booed John Henry outside of Fenway during the Winter Classic. Devers was signed a week later, which is still hilarious to me that happened. And then like they claimed to have been in on the Yamamoto sweepstakes. They saw what the actual price of him was, and I think they were really shocked just how far behind the 8 ball they really were. So I think this ownership group, ever since the 2018 championship, has not been dedicated to winning. They could care less. They want to spend as little money as possible, which is frustrating because an organization like this doesn't need to play Moneyball. You're the third, if not fourth richest team in all of baseball because it's the Dodgers, the Cubs, the Yankees, and then you. And frankly, you're usually the third team, but it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I've been frustrated since the 2018 as well, just because I think I was with your brother when Mookie Betts got traded, and I was pissed because we got nothing in return. Literally, Verdugo was okay for a season. Wong is nothing, and then the 2 minor league pitchers, nothing either. Like, it comes to a point when we got to pay the market value. Like, I know we have a history of just developing our own guys. Like in that 2018 season, I would say like the majority of our team was homebred guys. But it comes to a point when you need to keep those key pieces. Like we needed Bogarts, we needed that re-sign of Bogarts, we needed Betts, and we needed Devers, we needed a three-headed monster. And they're like, all right, well, we'll let you go and we'll pick up these other guys and raise them up from the farm. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, we need the farm guys too, but we need those core pieces. How are we going to gel as a team if we have all farm guys, no like stars?
Yeah, and how as a fan base are you really going to be able to root around guys when you know by the time they're past arbitration and they're up for their first contract, you're going to let the guy walk? And frankly, I will say that the Red Sox during that championship run turned out some amazing talent, developing guys like Betts, Bogarts, Bradley for an example, Devers, Benintendi. You know, just amazing positional players. You know what I didn't mention in there is pitching because they have been terrible at developing pitching for a very long time. Now, I know they were able to get Brian Bayo, who has been very good for them, is now the opening day starter and seems to almost be the de facto ace of this rotation. So we'll have to see how he looks throughout this year because I think that he does have a lot of promise. I know everyone calls him like baby Pedro, and is Pedro Martinez like mentoring him. So I think that he does bring a lot to the table. But that's a lot to put on one kid. And outside of Bayo, the last real guy that was a solid MLB guy that you developed was John Lester.
I mean, Eduardo Rodriguez had a couple good years.
Rodriguez wasn't your prospect. He was taken by the Orioles.
Oh, really? I thought he was ours.
We
Oh,
acquired we acquired
Clay
Rodriguez.
Buchholz
Buckles, yeah, but Clay Buckles
at 12-6. Come on with the little gel.
Clay Buckles was good for a couple years. And listen, Clay Buckles was my favorite pitcher for a while, but I think Bob Costas, he was the announcer for it was for a Red Sox Cleveland series. And I think Buckles was on the mound. He gave the best description of Buckles of all time, where he said he's consistently inconsistent. And
Yeah.
and literally, you don't know what you're gonna get. You could get a guy who could be the equivalent to Max Scherzer and battle it out and go 8 innings, or he's gonna get shelled and give up 7 in the first. Like you really don't know what you're gonna get. And unfortunately, later on during his tenure in Boston, it started to teeter a little bit more towards the latter, which was unfortunate because I really liked what he used to bring to the table earlier in his career. Now, Rodriguez was brought to Boston when we shipped out Andrew Miller to Baltimore. That was the prospect that we got in return. And I remember I actually watched Rodriguez's first Double-A start with the Red Sox, was kind of impressed with him. And then when he got called up, was really solid for us. But then eventually he got shipped out of town as well. And like he's been a solid MLB arm ever since.
Yeah, I actually like what you brought up there, the consistently inconsistent. I
Yeah.
think that phrase there goes from Buchholz to the entire Red Sox pitching staff of the past 3 years, because I feel like that's what we get. You get Bayo, you go out there one day, he pitches 8, gives up 1. Then the next day, I don't even know.
Meta.
Yeah, like just the guy you don't even know their name because we don't have any starters anymore. You
Yeah.
throw a random guy on the mound, he gives up 7 runs, we lose.
Yeah.
Like it's day to day. Like
Yeah,
I
I
don't know what to
think
say
with
anymore.
I think with Nick, like Nick Pivetta, who is I think going to be our 2 guy now. What I'll say about him is that he always has a stretch during the middle of the year where he's just on fire, like he is unhittable. But then as soon as he cools off, he crashes out big time, and it's rough.
Yeah, I that's the same. That's the guy I was looking for. With the consistently inconsistent, because I remember there was a span last summer where he was 2 earned runs, 2 earned runs, 2 earned runs, and then like as soon as it hit some point, it was like 5-6, 5-6. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, gee.
It was just like, oh boy, here it comes. Which leads me into this Red Sox season, frankly. I think that they're going to be okay to start the year because they do have a lot of young talent. They have Tristan Casas, they have Trevor Story coming back. You're going to have Devers, you're going to have Tyler O'Neill and Cedane Raphael in that outfield. So there's a lot of promise, and I think if those young guys can pay off early, you're going to see maybe some early wins, and maybe you win a couple series that you weren't expecting to. So I think that is on the table, but I think by the time you get to June and I frankly think that our bullpen is just going to get worn out. And then that's when we're going to really hit the skid, unfortunately, probably going into the All-Star break. And then the dog days of summer where it's like late July or August. And it's just like really rough and you're in that grueling part of the season, I think that's going to play a heavy toll on those guys.
Yeah, I think what's going to come bite us in the ass is our starting pitching. That's what it was last year. It would be we needed a reliever almost every single game for a long duration of time. Our bullpen was pretty solid, I would say, last year for the most part. There would be days where obviously it's off, but that's with every team.
Yeah.
I think that our problem was we would have that consistently inconsistent where each guy there'd be a week and everyone would be off and it would be every single day we need max um basically max strength from our bullpen, and we're just wearing them out day after day.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we were having bullpen days as our fifth starter. Like we didn't have a legitimate fifth guy, and we were doing an opener, which is like you're just setting yourself up for disaster with that.
Yeah, I like I said, I think we're just gonna wear them down.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it only kind of got worse for the Red Sox this past last night as Jordan Montgomery, who was linked to Boston for the longest time. I mean, he has a residency in Boston. His wife literally works in the city, and everyone is saying like, all right, this guy's gonna just like eventually fall into the Red Sox lap. He ends up going to the Arizona Diamondbacks on a 1 year, $25 million deal. So he's now off the table. And frankly, like, I didn't think that Jordan Montgomery was going to be like this. I didn't think he was going to fix problems. And it's like, oh, if the Red Sox don't have Jordan Montgomery, then we're screwed for this season. We would be screwed regardless if we had him because like, yeah, he's a great arm, but I think that the best he's like a 3.5, 4 ERA guy, which is not bad at this point in the MLB with the way offense is, but I don't think he would have been as big of a difference maker as people think so.
I think that we needed to go out and kind of just get a bunch of guys like Jordan Montgomery, pay that money, at least get some pitching because I mean, in order to build this team where people want to come, yes, we're the Red Sox, but if we're not getting wins, no one's going to want to come and we're going to be stuck with these prospects that we traded for that in the past, like Jeter Downs, we haven't seen pay dividends. So,
Yeah, the last I saw Jeter Downs, he was hitting a buck 50 with the Yankees minor league team
yeah.
when he came back to Pollock Park.
Last time I saw him was with you at the Woo Sox.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Oh yeah, well yeah, in that case, I
Yeah.
guess.
So yeah, so like that's the last time I saw him. But that I don't know. Red Sox this season as a fan, it's gonna be pretty rough, but that's what we have in terms of Red Sox news. Before we do close out the show, though, something I did want to get into, which is more in terms of MLB as a whole, is the whole situation revolving around Shohei Ohtani. Because after the opening day for the Dodgers in Korea, it comes out that Shohei Ohtani had some sort of conversation with his translator, how is it pronounced? Epepi Mizuhara in the dugout. And they have some sort of discussion, and then you kind of see them go their own separate ways. And it comes out afterwards that Otani's translator reportedly stole $4.5 million from him and placed illegal gambling bets. And it's at the point now where it's like $4.5 million. That doesn't just go missing. I know Ohtani signed a Godfather deal with the Dodgers, but that isn't something where you can be like, oops, I lost that. That that amount of money that has to go into gambling, so many people need to sign off on that for that to be taken away from your bank account. It's not even funny. So in my mind, I don't know how there's any way that Shohei didn't know about this, but Brian, what's your overall take on this? Do you think that Shohei knew about this?
My take, I think it was the Pat McAfee show today that was talking about how like the interpreter's role. So Shohei obviously he speaks I think he speaks decent English. Like I heard him speak. I think he speaks pretty
He's
good English.
improved, yeah.
So I'm not sure if he completely understands like what is being said, but he understands some of it. But like the interpreter is the eyes or is the ears and I guess the ears and the mouth of the player if they don't really know anything. So I think he could technically be misconstruing what Shohei was hearing in terms of where his money might be going and things like that. If he wanted to, because at the time when Shohei maybe didn't know as much English and he didn't understand what was being said, the interpreter could technically just misconstrue whatever he wants into Japanese and tell Shohei, and then whatever Shohei says in his ear into English that isn't what Shohei actually said. So in that case, I could see how Shohei didn't really know where the money was going or anything like that.
That is fair. Then I guess you could make that assumption that he just really did take advantage of him, which based on this guy's track record is definitely possible. Cause I know we just mentioned the Red Sox. Pepe he had made reference to having priorly worked with the Boston Red Sox, saying that he used to be a interpreter when the Red Sox had Hideki Okajima during the 07 run. And was it the 07 run? I'm not 100% sure, but he used to say that he was the interpreter when they had Okajima. And the Red Sox came out and basically said, you never worked for us. We have no idea who you are. And then he also, I think, said he went to a college. I think it was UC Riverside, if I'm correct. I'd have to double check on that. But then that college also came out and said, we have no records of this person ever attending our school. So this guy is just a grade A fraud and seems to almost be like the guy that ran, if you remember the Fire Festival documentary that came
Oh
out on
yeah.
Netflix, where that guy, he sets a festival and says we're going to get all these DJs and guys and then it turns into different like fans and stuff
Desert.
out of like tent cities and it's flooding and people are like starving. Yeah, like that's essentially like the level that this guy is on. He is just a full-fledged scumbag and probably did take advantage of him. But in my mind, I don't know how there's any way that Shohei had no clue. I think that he had to know probably like, okay, this guy's taking $4.5 million of my money. Like he's got to have some idea of it. But like the fact that it does come out now, it makes Major League Baseball is in a heck of a bind here because they have set a precedent that gambling, it doesn't appear that it's been on baseball. But the idea of gambling, if it is on baseball, the penalty is life because that's what happened to Shoeless Joe Jackson. That's what happened to Pete Rose. And MLB right now, they don't want this to happen to Shohei Ohtani because he is everything for the sport. And they realize that this isn't like the 1990s or even earlier where you can say, all right, we're going to step in, we're going to be bigger than the player and deal out a suspension. They realize now that if Shohei Ohtani goes away, the market that they're going to lose, one from Japan and two from like just the baseball demographic in general, it will be so devastating for the sport because ever since Ohtani's come in the league and really stepped into his own, that's all the MLB posts about. It's, oh, Shohei's on the mound today. Oh, look at this home run that Shohei hit. I think they probably posted every single home run of his probably last season. I don't know if there was a home run of his that they didn't post. So I think that they are so obsessed with posting about him. And unfortunately, it did take away from a lot of guys. And now they're in a situation where they've pumped him up so much, they can't afford to take him away now.
Yeah, he's the Pat Mahomes of baseball, simply.
Exactly.
But I could see them if it does come out that it's an actual gambling thing for the baseball. They just let him play, and then when it comes to Hall of Fame, they dock it just like they did for the steroid era and for Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe.
Yeah, but letting him play isn't the precedent that they've set. The entire time when you gamble on baseball, you're done. And it doesn't
I know,
and it
but
doesn't
they
appear
don't
that
have a
he's gambled on
choice.
baseball. And it doesn't appear that he's gambled on baseball. It from right now, it seems like it's a lot of college basketball and college football bets and NFL. So it doesn't seem to be anything tied with the MLB right now. That's what's come out so far. Now, my estimation from different things that I've heard is maybe like some government agencies will get involved in this. And frankly, what the MLB probably will do is that they're going to stay out of this and whatever governments or agencies want to get involved with it and do it, they will comply. They'll say, hey, go nuts, look into this all you want. We are not going to interfere, do anything with this. And I think that they're just going to patiently wait for this process to play out. They're not going to expedite anything here.
I agree. I don't think they can afford to expedite anything or put Shohei on the sidelines. It just costs too much of their market.
100%. I think that they want to keep this thing as low key as possible and hope that it can just disappear from people's minds. Because I think that what they really wanted to hype up was the fact that they had their opening day in Korea, and now no one really cares. No
Right.
one.
I remember seeing just Shohei putting that foul ball through the thing, and then the next day, every headline is Shohei Ohtani's interpreter, 4.5 million.
Yeah,
So
that's all that everyone's talking about.
so it's just been flipped from a good thing to pretty terrible thing
The
for
worst situation ever that your best player might be a gambling fraud.
correct.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I hope it's not the case because listen, even as someone who can recognize how much MLB is pumping this guy up, it's for a good reason. It's because he's the modern day Babe Ruth. He's doing things in this sport that have never been done before, where He's a top of the line starter that is also going out and hitting 40 plus home runs every single season. So I can't hate on that. Like, he is an unbelievable talent to have on the field. So hopefully the MLB plays this one smart, and maybe in the end Shohei is innocent, but it's crazy to see how this is playing out, especially as soon as he becomes a Los Angeles Dodger.
Yeah, it's crazy to see it play out in the biggest market, I would say, in the whole MLB too. Just all the publicity and everything surrounding it is kind of insane.
Yeah. Because I think frankly, if he's an Angel still, I don't know if this gets as much publicity, because at the end of the day, the Angels aren't going to do anything of note. They're still going to probably finish in like fourth or last place and really not make a difference in that division. And I think that the fact that he's on the Dodgers, who are probably the bona fide favorite to go win the World Series this year, everyone's wondering, is he going to make it to October? So I think that's the big question that we have going on from there. And I will be very excited to see how this plays out. But Brian, at this point, we are now officially down to the wire, which means that we're going to wrap up what we talked about in this show and send you all on your way. First of all, if you want to listen to this show live, I know my schedule has been a little off, but we are typically streaming on WJMF 88.7 HD2 radio at Bryant University, or you can listen live at WJMFradio.com, typically on Wednesdays from 7 to 8. This was a little bit different. It's 9 now. So, Bryant, I thank you so much for staying on and kind of going a little bit later with me on this one.
Oh, I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah. So first things first, to kind of recap, we talked about the NFL and their new rules that they're going to be implementing, the banning of the hip drop tackle and the new XFL style kickoff that'll be coming to the league next year. We gave our opinions on that and how we feel how that's going to impact the game moving forward. We also talked about the Patriots QB situation, what we think they're going to do with the number 3 overall pick. After that, we talked about the hype that JJ McCarthy has been getting and probably the GM that's going to end up losing his job over this. After that, we talked about the NCAA tournament and some of the Cinderella stories like Jack Golke in Oakland upsetting Kentucky, as well as just a bunch of other NIL deals and stuff that has occurred for these guys and how really just life-changing this tournament can be. And we also discussed a little bit about John Calipari and how, really these freshman-led teams aren't really what they've been in the past and kind of can get outshined by, some more veteran leadership. To end the show, we discussed the Red Sox and their very down offseason, just a very tumultuous couple of months for them, and some worries going to the start of the year. And we ended stuff tonight talking about Shohei Ohtani and his gambling scandal currently going on with him and his interpreter. So, Brian, once again, thank you so much for tuning into the show. From Down to the Wire, I'm Brian Costa.
I'm Briant Johnson.
We hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Take care. Peace out.